Hello everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our training today. While I wait for everyone to come on in, I'm going to load up my PowerPoint and get that all set up. And I'm going to ask you as you come in, if you can mute yourself, that would be great. Again, welcome and welcome. Appreciate you coming today. And let's just see. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the PowerPoint happening there? Excellent. Yay, some friends on the line. Melissa, nice to see you. We have a bunch of people joining us. Excellent. Well, we have a lot to talk about today, so I am going to go ahead and get us started and start off by saying welcome to the first training for team agreements in this brand new year. We're going to be talking about leadership as a state of mind. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be, let's move this over here. There we go. We're going to be talking about what leadership is and isn't. We're also going to be going through 8 mindsets of really strong leaders and the 5 ways we resist leadership, as well as 3 strategies for stepping into being really bold leaders and leveling up this year. So what you can expect over the next 60 minutes or so is we're going to be doing things all together. So it's going to be really highly interactive with opportunities to reflect, engage with the community. So yes, you're going to be sharing and talking with each other. So do yourself a favor and go all in. Turn off those notifications, those messenger programs, flip your phones over and grab a pen and paper. Also, my commitment to you is to give you great value today. So as I said, we're going to be really interacting. I'm going to give you a lot of great content. At the very end of our training, you'll be able to receive a certificate, and I'll tell you how to do that and download it. Plus, I have a fantastic free gift that I want to share with you. It's something I just created, so I'm pretty excited about. So stay tuned and you'll know more about that. In addition, what I'm going to request from you is I'm going to ask you to do a really short survey at the end or an evaluation. It'll take you all of about maybe 2 minutes to do it. It'll give me some great feedback. And then in addition to that, I'm going to ask permission to share about my upcoming leadership bootcamp. There's some fantastic things happening with that. And so I really want to share that with you folks. And if that's okay with you, go ahead and type yes into the chat box for me. That way I know you're ready and all set. Fantastic. Everyone's using their chat box. Appreciate that. So let me formally introduce myself. Hi, I'm Deidre Harris. I'm going to be your trainer facilitator today. I'm also the brains and beauty behind Team Agreements. And on the screen right now, what I have up there is just some pictures. And I wanted to share a little bit about myself. One, because I don't really want to go through my whole resume, but really to show you that in all of my years in education, and every single role I've had to stand up into leadership. So even as a teacher assistant, when I was just beginning, I had to move into leadership and make some decisions in how I was going to operate in the classroom and work with colleagues. Also, what I wanted to show you is, in addition, if you look at that top left corner, that's a picture of Hawaii, Honolulu, in fact, on Oahu. And I always show that picture because I took it from a 6-seater prop plane as I was going to one of my sites as a director on the island of Molokai. And it doesn't matter whether I was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean in a very remote island, Or if I was all the way across the nation and even internationally, I've had lots of great conversations. Leadership has always come up in lots of different forms. And so we're going to be spending our time talking about that both professionally and personally today, which is why you also see the pictures on the right-hand side. So the bottom right, that's myself and my lovely family. Yes, I love them, but I didn't put them up there just to, share them with you, but to say, even as a mother, as a wife, as a sister, as an aunt, as a friend, in my personal life, I had to stand up into leadership in multiple different ways. So again, we're going to be talking about that as well. And during the course of our time together, that little guy at the top right reminds us to have fun. He's just the silliest little thing that I keep on my desk. And when I press the button on his stomach, his hands go up into the air and his eyes roll up. And it just makes me giggle, even after all of these years. So let's have some fun together today. So, are you ready? If you're ready, go ahead and put yes back in the chat box. So I know you're with me and we're ready to go. Perfect. Those chats are coming in. I appreciate the engagement. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is take a look at these 8 quotes, and I'm going to leave them up for, I'm going to give us about 2 minutes because it's a lot to read through. And I want you to choose the quote that resonates the most. So go ahead and choose the quote that resonates the most. So if you're just joining us, welcome, welcome. We're having you go through and looking at the quotes, and go ahead and choose one quote that really stands out to you or resonates with you. Okay, I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds to find one that really resonates for you, stands out, and start thinking about why. And I know many of you weren't able to join us live, so if you're coming back in for the replay, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. So you should be taking a look at the quotes and deciding on one that really resonates or speaks to you. And so here we go. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. So remember, I said that we're going to have opportunities to engage, and this is where it starts. So we're going to step into leadership here. Some of us may be a little uncomfortable. Some of us may be really exuberant, but I'm going to actually break us up into some smaller groups because I want you to share with each other, what quote did you choose and why? Why did it stand out to you? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move us into a few breakout rooms. And let's go ahead and do so. I'm creating the room now. Each room has between 3 to 4 people in it. As soon as I click the button, what's going to happen is you're going to magically get booted into the room. And what I'm going to say is that we are going to close the room automatically at 3 minutes. So each person will get about 1 minute or a little bit less to go ahead and share. So if you're just joining us, we're going to move you into a breakout room to just talk about some quotes. You'll see the quotes up on the screen, and you're welcome to join a group to share your thoughts. Okay, if you're joining us back in, I'm going to ask if you would be so bold as to step into strong leadership and share the quote that you chose and share with us why you chose it. So if you're just popping back in, welcome, welcome back. And I'm asking if there's anyone would be willing to step into bold leadership and share the quote that they chose and why they chose it.
I can share.
Okay.
There were 4 people in our group, and 3 of the 4 picked the same quote.
Wow.
So, which I thought was very interesting. And we all kind of said similar things, but as a strong person, you're always taking care of others. And, sometimes, you're just having an off day. You didn't sleep well, and you just need somebody to say, I'll take care of this for you. Taking the trash out, whatever it is, just something simple. But, it's just nice when somebody says, I'll take care of you for once. So we picked that. You're a strong person, but every once in a while you would like someone to hold your hand and tell you things are going to be okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful statement,
Right.
right? Because often as leaders, we don't often have a willingness to step into vulnerability and ask for help.
Right.
And so we're going to be talking about that because that actually speaks to gathering a community around us that can be supportive, people who we can go to, as well as the people who we support. So thank you, Kathy. So Kathy set the bar, you guys, right? She took the risk, she stepped out, and that's going to be the name of the game for us for the rest of the hour. So I'm going to give someone else the opportunity to step into strong leadership and pick up where Kathy left off. What quote did you choose and why?
I chose the same one that Kathy them chose, that you're a strong person, but every once in a while you would like someone to hold your hand, because she was saying in leadership, they look for you to have all the answers. Sometimes I work with a teaching managing, and you speak to everyone and you say good morning, or you say how you doing, but sometimes you don't get that back, and they just assume that you are the manager and that you're okay. But sometimes it's nice just to have someone say, well, how you doing? How's things going? Did you have a good evening?
Absolutely. So professionally speaking, right, how do we set up our workplace cultures, regardless of our role, so that there's this reciprocity of caring? Right. So we know we need to be appropriate levels of sharing or vulnerability when we're at work, but that doesn't mean that we can't receive, like you're saying, Patricia, that we can't receive a, hey, how is it going today?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Who else gets to step into strong leadership and share with us?
Share.
Okay.
I was the only one in my group. I think Yolanda joined just when there was a couple of seconds left, so we didn't really talk. But the quote that I chose was, commitment means staying loyal to what you said you were going to do long after the mood you said it has left you. And I just think that people being able to count on you to do what you said you were going to do or whatever is super important. So yeah, that follow through and building that trust and things like that in those relationships.
Absolutely. And Sandy, we're going to talk about this more in a little bit, but I'm going to also expand that to ourselves. Because how often do we let ourselves down that we're going to say, right? Just think about those New Year's resolutions. Where are we now with those, right? That speaks to integrity as well, to ourselves. So it's not just to others, but to ourselves as well. So that's something we really want to think about in terms of leadership. Absolutely. So Jennifer threw something up on the chat. Thank you. Let me pull it up there. She was saying that detachment doesn't mean not caring, it's taking care of yourself. Because I have to take care of myself to care for others. So I really appreciate that, Jennifer, because it starts with us. Right? And this speaks to the having emotional intelligence and those strong boundaries. So one of the things that I'll be talking about later on, probably next month or the following month, is this idea of stepping out of saving and into inspiring. Right? Because often as leaders, we feel we need to save people, right, from themselves or from the situation. But really, if we move away from that, because then that can create some dependency there, and it releases people from their own responsibility, and step into inspiring them so that they'll want to stretch and take on the responsibility for themselves. So awesome, Jennifer. I appreciate that. Who else? Anyone else before we keep going?
I was a part of the first group. I was the fourth one that didn't choose the one. But I picked the quote by Socrates because I'm new to this environment where I'm working and not from the town. I'm from Minneapolis. And so coming in, I think I focus too much on trying to change the past, but focusing on building the future. And what you were saying about stepping into inspiring them to build versus seeing it as let's change everything.
Yeah.
So that
And
one
so
really.
that speaks to about taking risks. Right? And being a change agent. And often as leaders, again, either professionally and also personally, because I'm going to encourage us to keep thinking personally as well. Things change all the time. Just the last year was crazy with change, right? COVID just upended everything. We had racial tension. We had political unrest. I mean, it was just a crazy, crazy, crazy year. And so there was a lot of change. So how did we manage the change at work and at home? Were we facing backwards saying, oh, I wish it was like it used to be? Or were we facing forwards saying, okay, things have changed. How am I going to change with it? What do I need to do to move myself, the people around me forward as well? So thank you for that. And I want you folks to continue to think about those quotes because they're going to come up for us. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint and ask you to do a really quick poll for me because I didn't get the opportunity to have everyone share about the quotes that they chose. So I'm going to pull up a poll, and all I'm going to ask you to do is just click on the quote that stood out to you the most. And then I'm going to do a quick screenshot of that so that I can remember as we go through who chose what, and make sure that we talk about them all. So you should see a quote that says, a poll that says leadership quote. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the poll? Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to go ahead and choose the one that stood out for you. Okay, great. We'll give it a few more seconds. Make sure everyone who wants to has a chance. Okay, about one more second. I'm going to end the poll now and share the results. So it looks like the one, almost 50%, 7 of you, again, said about being a strong person, or about gathering that community around you and also moving into uh, um, community as well, and being supportive as well as supported. So doing those two things. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Let's see if there are any other ones out there. The other big one was, down at the bottom, the secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. So that's pretty interesting. And the other big one was detachment doesn't mean not caring. It's taking care of yourself first and letting others take responsibility for their actions without trying to save or punish them, right? If they're not doing what we want to do. So thank you for that. I'm going to stop that. It's really good information for me. And I'm going to start us off by talking about what leadership is and is. And we talk about this because all of us have different ideas. And again, what's really interesting is that we have different ideas whether we're at work or whether we're at home. So how we show up as leaders are typically very different professionally and personally. So when we're thinking about, let's start with what leadership isn't. It is not about always being out front, right? That we don't always have to be leading the charge and be what I call standing in the front of the room. And it is certainly not about saying yes to everything. We get in trouble when we do that, right? That's when we head into overwhelm because we've got too many things flying around. Our boundaries get crossed. People can sometimes take advantage. We get worn out. It's not about doing the same thing over and over and over, right? What's that term? The definition of crazy, or the definition of insanity, right, is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. So we want to figure out, how many times we're going to try before we want to tweak or change or add or stop. And then also keeping things as they are because it's easy. Okay, I'm going to raise my hand for that one. All right, that's me. I would like to do that often, or because that's the way these things have always been done. We hear that a lot, and we hear that both at work and at home. Think about those Thanksgiving recipes. Oh, we don't change that recipe because that's, grandma's recipe. That's the way it's always been done. That's the way we're always going to do it, right? So these things show up professionally and personally. And then the last one, leadership isn't avoiding conflict at all costs or being in denial that it exists or give up because it's too difficult to manage. Because we know what happens is that when conflict goes unresolved, it tends to kind of poison our workplace culture, and a lot of things start rippling from that effect. And you folks who know me from earlier from team agreements, we talk about managing those challenging behaviors in adults and reducing conflict in the classroom. Know what I'm talking about, that and the 4 steps to move through that. So let's land on what leadership is. It's sometimes being a great follower, right? And then allowing other people to lead, because when we do that, we are sending them the message, whether verbally or non-verbally, that we trust in their ability to do that. And that's huge. Empowering that with someone is a gift. So we want to think about, delegating, following other people's leads. and sometimes having to say no. I know for leaders, and especially for women, this can be really hard because we so want to help out everyone. And especially in the education field where many of us are just full on nurturers, right? We just want to take care of everybody. But knowing that when we do that, we tend to burn out and then we keep other people from growing as well. Definitely, leadership is moving in different directions to get the job done. Again, I think about COVID. And often when I would talk to groups or when I'm coaching individuals, we really come up against two types. It's the ones that are actually, again, looking behind, they're stuck, they're not sure how to get going. And then there are those who are saying, you know what, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to do something. I'm going to try something. We call that failing forward, right? Innovating, creating, trying to be solution focused, and then doing things differently in order to get desired results. Again, stepping out of the norm, or this is the way things are have always been done, especially if they're not getting us the outcomes that we're looking for. And then, of course, last but not least, leadership is resolving, accepting, and moving through conflict. I should have put accepting in there first, because you know what I always say, it's not a matter of if, it's actually when um, behaviors happen or conflict happens, what do we do? So we want to be prepared for that uh, no matter what. And so, having said that, basically, leadership is a state of mind. Right? It's a way of being or a set of behaviors or dispositions. You'll hear me go back and forth between mindset and dispositions during the course of our rest of the time together. So here are mindsets of really strong leaders. And you'll notice there are 8 of them. And in addition to that, what you'll also notice is that even though they're presented linear, like they go in a line, they're not that way at all. We know that all of them actually impact and interact with each other. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is I'm going to be going through uh, each one of these really briefly and talking about them and talking about, what leadership looks like for each of them. And as I do so, here is my ask for you. Remember, we're going to be engaged this whole time. So I want you to reflect on each of these dispositions or mindsets as I go through it. And I want you to think about how it shows up for you, both personally and professionally. And as you go through, you might find yourself leaning toward one way versus another. For example, many of you might be leaning toward, oh, professionally, this is what it looks like. And if that's the case, I'm going to encourage you to kind of step back and think about it, how it shows up in your life personally as a leader, or vice versa. If you gravitate toward the personal leadership, then I'm going to ask you to step back and think about looking at it professionally as well. And again, for those of you who weren't able to be on live with us today, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. So even though you're not online with the community, it doesn't mean that you're not part of the community. So join us. Also, what I'm going to be sharing with you at the very end, it's actually one of the gifts, is a leadership mindset wheel. So for those of you who've downloaded the effective teaming wheel, this operates the same way, but it goes hand in hand with each of the dispositions that we're going to be talking about. And I'm going to ask you to reflect on them. And this is what you can do. I'm going to when I pull it up, I'll see if I can actually put the doc in the chat so you can download it, but you'll also be able to download it later on. If you're not able to, or I'm not able to get it up, what you're going to do is when we get to that category, and I'm going to ask you to reflect just on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think you are? So you can just do this with a plain piece of paper and a pen. You don't have to have the wheel, but I'm going to try and get it to you when we get to that point. So here's the first of our mindsets. It's about having a clear vision and mission minded. And there's that quote, the pain pushes you until the vision pulls you. And I always like to start talking about vision or mission by showing a journey with our mission and goals, those milestones along the ways, those things that we're trying to accomplish that ultimately will get us to the vision. And here's what I often find happening. People are down here with a car and it's like they're trying to push it up the hill, literally. And that happens when we don't have a really clear vision or concrete mission or goals. If you don't know where you're going, you're going to go all over the place. It's going to take you a longer time to get there. And as a leader, with the people around you, you're going to end up kind of pushing them up the hill too, because they don't know where they're going. So instead, when we talk about really strong leadership, we really want to talk about fueling the tank. And so when we talk about having a clear vision and casting it out and turning it into reality by, again, having that mission and those goals in place, we're talking about the fuel. And you'll notice that when we put fuel in the car, we don't need to push it. It goes by itself and it feels like going down the hill. So vision gives us that passion, or the why, as many of us know it. And that passion is what fuels us. It keeps us going when the time gets rough, as well as giving that clear direction where we're going to try and get to. So as really strong leaders, we want to make sure that we have very clear mission, or very clear vision, as well as a mission. The next mindset is around courage. And again, this quote, I know every time I witness a strong person, I want to know, what darkness did you conquer in your story? Because mountains do not rise without earthquakes. So here's the thing about being a leader. We're going to have challenges, both professionally and personally. What do we need to overcome in order to get to the other side? And as strong leaders, that's our goal. It's not to disregard the fear. The fear is there for a really good reason. It helps us to understand what's going on or what things we might need to take care of. But we don't want it to stop us. So we're going to use courage to step through and over, around and under and past our fear to keep us going in the moment. So this is where I'm going to ask us to stop for a second and reflect. And while you're reflecting, I'm going to ask you to reflect on both having a clear vision and mission, as well as courage. And think about that scale from 1 to 10. And you're going to rate yourself, either drawing a number or just writing the number where you think you are. And then once you do that, I'm going to ask you to think about, how would your life be different if you were operating at a 9 or a 10 in that particular area? Now that's important because that's part of the vision to pull us forward. So how would your life be different? And I'm going to give us about, let's say, 2 minutes to go ahead and do that. And again, you want to rate yourself, and you want to be thinking about, how would your life be different in both courage and clear vision and mission minded. And while we do that, I'm going to see if I can go ahead and put the doc in the chat for you to download. Let's see. Okay, we have about 1 minute left, and you should see up in the chat the document. If you click on that link, you should be able to pull up the document right there on your computer. And for those of you who aren't able to, I will have a link where you can download it as well. So let's take about 30 more seconds. And where do you fit on the scale for courage, as well as clear vision and mission minded? Okay, about 5 more seconds, and then we'll stop. Okay, so we're going to keep going to the next one. And this is where we're going to talk about commitment. So commitment means staying loyal to what you said you were going to do long after the mood you said it has left you. Because typically when we start off with commitment, we have really high energy and it's exciting. And then as time goes on, sometimes we can lose that energy or lose the commitment, or it can go down. And so here's where we want to think about as really strong leaders is, how committed are we? And this is where we're going to connect directly back to that vision, because I said earlier, when you have a really strong, clear vision, it pulls you forward. It's going to keep you highly committed, highly engaged. It's going to draw out that passion. And so you want to make sure that that vision is not only clear, but it's something you're passionate about. And if it's not, you might want to rethink your vision. And so something to think about, including for vision and for being committed, is how much joy does it bring you? Do you get lit up when you're thinking about it? Do you get excited? Is it what you think about most of the time, all of the time? And when you are, then you're talking about being all in. Now, granted, you're not going to be all in for every single commitment based on who and where that commitment is coming from, but you also, as strong leaders, get to make that decision about whether you're going to accept that commitment or not. So this is a real hard one for us, because oftentimes we can get enrolled in somebody else's vision, or we can make commitments that overextend ourselves. So as strong leaders, we need to really think about our boundaries and where we need to draw the line. It goes back to that idea of saying no. And sometimes we need to do that so that our focus, our commitment, our all in is really prioritized around those things that are really high on our list. So sometimes easier said than done, but definitely things that we want to be thinking about. The next one we want to be thinking about is being ethical and integrity, right? So that quote, integrity is choosing your thoughts and actions based on values rather than personal gain. So we know this. This isn't anything new for many of us. And so as strong leaders, what I want to challenge us in is, typically when we think of being in integrity or being ethical, it's usually outward pointing, meaning our obligations to other people. And as I mentioned at the very beginning of our call, when we started talking about this quote, our challenge as leadership is in the personal realm. So how respectful are we to ourselves? How often do we belittle ourselves? Oh my gosh, Deidre, you're crazy. Oh my gosh, Deidre, you've got to lose this weight. Oh my gosh, Deidre, right? So how do we even speak to ourselves? Or do we stay in integrity with ourselves? I talked about New Year's resolutions. They're usually the first to go. But if I'm going to make a commitment to, say, losing the weight or getting more exercise or doing something else, How committed am I? Am I staying in integrity to myself to follow through? Or am I putting myself at the end of the line behind everyone else? And as strong leaders, when we do that, remember we're modeling 24/7, both at home and at work. We show other people how to do that as well. So where might this show up? For example, you saw my family at the very beginning, so you know I have a daughter. So as a mother, when I would do everything for everyone else and put myself last, I am actually modeling for her as a young woman to do the same as she grows into becoming that leader herself. And I had to really ask myself, do I want her to grow up putting herself last? That was a really hard question for me. But once I made the decision, no, I had to step into integrity and hold my commitment to put myself first and show what that looks like so that she can do the same and step into leadership herself as a young woman and be strong. So these are some of the things that, again, we need to think of that might be easier professionally than personally, or vice versa. So here's our opportunity once again to reflect. So you either have downloaded the mindset wheel or you have that piece of paper. Go ahead and rate yourself in both areas, in commitment from 1 to 10 and in integrity from 1 to 10. And then don't forget to ask yourself, how would your life be different if you're operating at a 9 or 10? And we're going to take about 15 more seconds or so. Okay, so I'm going to stop us here and keep us going. So far, we've talked about having a clear vision and mission-minded. We talked about courage, we talked about commitment, and then we talked about being ethical and staying in integrity. And so I want to just stop and take a quick check-in and ask you, how are you folks doing so far? And are you getting value out of the information? And you're more than welcome to take yourself off of mute if you want to share. Great. So some chats are coming in, doing well. Any question or thoughts that you'd like to share before we go forward into the last four?
Deidre,
Yes, ma'am.
one of the things that I was thinking is that, and I just wrote it down, and I know you had said it earlier also, but when we're going through these and scoring them, then to think back, would your life be different if you were operating a 9 or a 10? And I
So
heard that earlier, but it hit me just now
in what way, Deanna? How come that stood out for you now?
because a couple of the things that we've gone through so far, like the clear vision and mission, I feel like maybe I'm being pushed instead of pulled,
Mm,
right? So how would my life be different if it was a 9 or a 10?
yeah. How would your commitment show up?
Yeah,
Right? How
right.
would your integrity show up? So you see how
Mhm.
they all interact with each other and impact each other? Absolutely. I love that question, Deanna. I ask myself that question all the time. So thank you. Anyone else want to step forward? Again, this is a great opportunity for you to step into strong leadership and share some of your thoughts.
Hi, Deidre.
Hi, how are you, Jeannie?
I'm doing well.
Good.
So you blew my mind with the whole ethical integrity thing and what do I show my daughter? And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, I know what I show my daughter. And it's not horrible things, but you're right. We put ourselves last.
Yeah.
100%, not 100%, but so often. And I never thought about throwing that question in instead of out.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeannie. And it's an important one. I use that as a personal example, but also at work as well, right? And it goes back to one of the earlier quotes where we talk about vulnerability. How are we role modeling that in appropriate ways? That reciprocal caring that we want to develop as part of our workplace culture. Absolutely. So thank you. And I'm going to keep us going, but feel free to reach out through chat or also unmute yourself as well if you'd like. So here we go. The next one is being emotionally intelligent, right? Again, that quote, detachment doesn't mean not caring. It's taking care of yourself first and letting others take responsibility for their actions without trying to save or punish them. Right? So when we're talking about emotional intelligence, we're talking about being really self-aware of ourselves and the impact we have on those around us. Right? So not just what we're doing ourselves, but how is it what we call landing on other people? There's empathy. Of course, we want to be able to step in and try to understand, step into somebody else's shoes to see what they might be experiencing. We just don't want to stay in empathy because a lot of times we then get pulled in doing for that person or trying to save that person. So we want to make sure that we're doing what we can to go ahead and be empathetic, but don't jump into saving. Then there's motivation, right? So again, that are we being pulled or are we being pushed? And what's motivating us? And how do we take 100% responsibility for that as well? There's self-regulation. Who is it? It was Oprah Winfrey, and I heard it one time that she had a sign, I don't know if she still does, in her office that before you enter her office on the door, it says something like, you are 100% responsible for the energy you're bringing into the room. Wow. Right? So a lot of times what will happen is, and again, I'll raise my hand because I've done this myself, but a lot of times we'll step in and actually look at blaming others. Oh, you made me so mad. And so we're saying that they had they were responsible for our emotions when actually we were the ones that got triggered and got mad. And then of course there's social skills. Yes, for us as adults, how do we interact with each other in ways that are positive, right? We talked about reciprocal caring, but there are other things as well. We also want to be thinking about cultural humility. This is such a great quote. The beauty of anti-racism is that you don't have to pretend to be free of racism to be an anti-racist. Anti-racism is the commitment to fight racism wherever you find it, including in yourself. And it's the only way forward. And the reason I love this quote is because often many of us have seen this culture iceberg before. We use it a lot when we do anti-bias work and implicit bias. But a lot of times we tend to swim and float around at the top of the iceberg. And as really strong leaders, what we really want to be doing is actually get on that snorkel gear, take those deep breaths, go below the surface and really explore those hidden cultural norms. And we want to start by exploring our own and then those around us. And many of you have downloaded the culture cards, which is a great way for you to be able to do that. So we want to stay in this space of knowing that our way is not the only way. It is just a way. Right? So really, really important as we go forward. Again, not only at work, but at home as well. So once again, here we're going to just take about 1 minute, and we are going to rate ourselves in emotional intelligence and cultural humility. Don't forget to ask yourselves, what would my life be different? Or how would my life be different if I was operating at a 9 or a 10? Okay, I'm going to cut us a little short and give us about 5 more seconds. Okay, I'm going to stop us here and go forward. Oh, crazy, 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 crazy. There we go. And check in and talk about being community minded. So this quote starts off with, you're a strong person, but every once in a while you would like someone to hold your hand and tell you things are going to be okay. We had so many. Remember, this was number 1 in our poll. Almost half of you chose this quote. And often when we think of community minded, we have this rosy picture in front of us, right? Everyone's living and working together really well. And we know as leaders that that's not always the case, that it's the vision, right? That's or the goal where we want to get to. But a lot of times it doesn't happen that way. And the reason for that is because often we don't think about really how community works. And so here is my thought for you around strong leadership. And that is, where are you in the community? And how are you using the community to not only support them, but to be supported by them? So, for example, many of you might be getting mentored, or some of you are going through coaching or getting coached, or some of us, like myself, for example, this is a really hard one for me because as a leader, I tend to lone wolf it, meaning I tend to try to do it all by myself, right? I got this, I can do this, right? I'm seeing some head shakes and some smiles, so I know you know what I'm talking about. And so one of the commitments that I made to myself to step into strong leadership is to actually step out and network, and not only network, but really ask for support from the network. And so I've joined a mastermind so that I can talk through specific content. I joined an accountability group, and every week we show up and we say what we've done and what we didn't do to hold ourselves accountable. I've stepped into a coaching program so that I can fine tune my skills sets and my knowledge. So really, how are we stepping into the community and again, allowing it to support us? And then the very last one we're going to talk about is risk taking and being a change agent. And so the quote here is, the secret of change is to focus all of your energy, not on fighting the old, but on building the new. Right. And so I know some of you chose this quote, and it's a great one. And that's because it goes all the way back to courage and commitment and vision. It takes all of those things in order for us to really propel ourselves into innovation, into change, and stepping into it. And some of the changes might just be going from doing something we're already doing and getting better at it, or it might be going into a bigger setting, a bigger fishbowl. And for some of us, sometimes it's going to feel like jumping out of the fishbowl and into the sea, because what we're taking on may seem so daunting or so big or so nebulous. And again, it goes back to not only commitment, not only integrity, not only vision, it goes back to community as well. So you can see how they all intertwine and connect with each other, and using all of those things to support us to move into knowing that the only constant is change. It's the only constant. So if things are always changing, as strong leaders, it's not an if, it's a when. How are we stepping into it? What is our mindset around it? How are we approaching it? And once again, we're going to stop here for a minute because I want to give you that opportunity to reflect. Again, we'll take about 30 seconds or so and think about being community minded and risk taking. Where are you from 1 to 8? Or I'm sorry, 1 to 10. And that all important question, how would my life be different if I was operating at a 9 or 10? Okay, I know we're a little bit rushed. Just so you know, we're recording, so I'll send out the replay. You're welcome to watch or listen to it again, and take a little bit more time if you need it. I'm going to stop us here because I just want to again do another check-in. Here we are. We've talked about everything from clear vision, courage, being ethical, emotionally intelligent, and then we wound up with standing in commitment, being community minded, having cultural humility, and being a risk taker and a change agent. And so here's the big question for you. When you thought about each of these mindsets, and you were talking about or writing down your, when you rated yourself from 1 to 10. When you think about those areas that might have been a little more challenging or a little lower than the others, think about stepping into leadership. What might be holding you back? And this is where I'm going to ask you. I know we have a few minutes. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to go over by a couple of minutes. And if you need to step away, I understand that. And again, we'll be showing the replay. But what's holding you back? And if you want to either write into the chat, or if you're feeling really bold in your leadership right now, take yourself off of mute and share. What might be holding you back from stepping into really strong leadership in one or more of these areas?
I'll share.
Okay.
Okay, so sometimes when I reflect back and thinking about what holds me back, it's generally the same uh, answer that I come to. So sometimes it's not sure the direction of the agency will like for me to go in terms of getting people or my employees to be in compliant and doing it from me, like having my, you know, how you do evaluations and how you observing them on a regular basis. And you see where their weaknesses are and where their strengths are. And you try to provide the tools that are needed, that are missing from their tool set to do the job effectively. And so you as a leader may decide, well, let me try this way, this strategy with this person, and it's not successful. And then you start observing a little closer. I try to be open minded and observing. And sometimes I'll even ask someone else just to take a look, a colleague, just to take a look, not give much information about the person, just tell me, can they observe and look in terms of what a need may be? And I may give them what need I'm talking about so I can get another perspective. But coming around to it, and then when I come up to, well, I need to do this, they're more productive. And then sometimes the employers kind of will receive it, and then there's times they won't, and then they may want to report me to human resources and saying that I'm being too this, I'm being too that, and you know, and I'm doing things my own way. And when
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm trying to meet the need and seeing what's making them be more proactive and to get the job done. Because at the end of the day, it's to stay within compliance. And
Yeah.
I'm
So
not
Janice, I'm going to jump in here for a second because I'm hearing two things really loudly. One, I'm hearing there's a lot of uncertainty, right?
Mhm,
So that tells me that you need to think about the vision, right? And the
mhm,
mission and what it is and how does it show up on a day-to-day basis. And not only for you and your role, oh, you can hear my cat in the back, she's crying to come in, but also how does it show up for the people you work with in their roles? Because remember, that's the fuel, right? So when we get people lit up, we don't need to push them, right? They'll want to step into it. And also, we know that compliance is there as for health and safety reasons. That's always compliance, and that's where we start. As strong leaders, we want to move above that, and the vision allows us to do that. Because when we do things just out of compliance, then you're pushing the car up the hill. Does that make sense? As opposed to doing it from a place of vision. Now, the compliance helps us to get there because it gives us things to think about and make sure are in place. But when we do things from a vision, then we're actually fully fueled and ready to go. So thank you for that. Anyone else want to share? It looks like there's some that's coming in under the chat, so I appreciate that. And so feeling like you're not being taken seriously or that I don't know what I'm talking about. So again, we actually think about that under, what's the word I'm looking for confidence. Right. So a lot of times we question our abilities, our skills, right? Our knowledge. Am I good enough? Do I have what it takes? And then another one that came up, I think of a lot of energy would be saved on my end if instead of pushing toward a mission or vision, we were all pulling together and that would move toward the changes that need to take place. Yes. Right. So now you're talking about community, right? And thinking about how do I bring everyone around me and get them engaged, get them passionate, show them the vision so that we're all fueled. So the vision and mission is not for myself as a leader to push forward. It's for all of us to wrap around and use and move forward. And again, we're talking about professionalism here, but what about personally as well? What are we doing at home where we may be the only ones doing it instead of delegating, right? Chores or responsibilities to the people around us so that we can all move together. And what's that vision, that personal vision that we have? So I know there's a lot more out there. And again, I apologize for moving us through this so quickly, but I want to make sure that I get the content in and let you folks go because I know you have a lot of things on your plates going forward. So just like we mentioned before, here are the common 5 reasons we resist stepping into strong leadership. And the reasons that we're talking about is fear, right? Fear of the unknown. What's going to happen when I start this or do this? We already talked about, that sense of uncertainty, and not only in terms of where we're going in terms of the vision, but do I have the resources that I need, like time or money? And I could tell you, I love coaching into money resistance. I absolutely do, because it's never about the money. So a great example is like the lottery, right? Oh, I wish I could use a lottery. It was this big, huge amount. And a lot of times I'll coach using an exercise called the 5W or the 5 whys. And I'll ask them why 5 times. Why do you want to win the lottery? And they'll say something. Why? They'll say something. Why? And after about 5, we get down to it, to the real reason. And what we find from then is the fun really begins, because then we can start exploring ways to get what they want. And it doesn't have anything to do with the money. Nothing. We usually can do it without having all of these things. Or that I'll hear someone say, I don't have the money if they want to pick up a resource. And again, it has nothing to do with the money. Typically, when I hear that, it's either they're saying that's not valuable enough to me to warrant spending the money, which is very different than I don't have it. Or it could be something like I'm not used to investing in myself. Or I go back to that fear or uncertainty around the community. I may not have a community that supports me around in this investment. But it's never about the money. All right. Or confidence. Again, thinking about our skill sets and that commitment. Are we committed to going forward? How badly do we want that vision? And if the commitment's not there, then our resistance come up to stepping into strong leadership around it. So some ways that we can push through it. We're going to ask ourselves 3 questions, and these are the strategies that we're going to use. And here's the first one. The first strategy, again, is going back to that really clear vision, right? Again, both personally and professionally. We want it to be so compelling. We want it to light you up so that it pulls you forward. And some of you are already thinking about that strategy for yourself right now. Also, we want to ask ourselves those reflective questions. One of them we've been doing all along. What would a 9 or 10 look like? What would my life look like if I was a 9 or 10 in this area? Or does this, and you fill in the blank, does this resource, does this blank, does this activity support the life I want? That's a great question to us to measure what we're doing on daily, weekly, monthly. It's going to be our GPS. It's going to course correct us if we're not doing things that are ultimately going to support us in the direction we want to go. And then that last one, again, is thinking about the cost. What is it costing me to not step into strong leadership? So if there's some place that I'm resistant, again, if we go back and we think about, for me, I know I tend to be resistant about that community, which is why I took it on this year to step into leadership. So when I ask myself, what is it costing me not to have a community around me? Well, it's costing me a lot of time and effort because I'm reinventing the wheel. I'm trying to figure it out on my own, and I'm missing out on great relationships. So when I start thinking about those things, it's like, okay, let me reevaluate here, go back to my vision, go back to my commitment, go back, step back into integrity and move forward. So let's recap really quickly. We talked about what leadership is and isn't. We talked about the 8 mindsets of strong leaders. We talked about just now the 5 ways we resist leadership or what holds us back from strong leadership. And then we just ended with 3 strategies for stepping into bold leadership. So I want to just stop and ask really quickly, how did I do? Did you get good value or at least some ideas for where you are in your own leadership right now and some ways that you can move forward or think about that? Okay, I know some chats are coming up. You're very welcome. Love the questions. Excellent. Great. Thank you. And so here's my question for you. Was the content valuable? Again, did you have that opportunity to engage in the community? And are you walking away with a better understanding? Lots of you are coming in and chatting and letting me know yes. So I appreciate that very much. And here is my question for you. And that is, do I have permission to go on for another 5 to 10 minutes and share about my upcoming leadership boot camp? And if this is okay with you, then go ahead and put yes into the chat. Okay, so while some of you are thinking about that, what I'm going to do is I want to just share with you what's going on and how exciting things are coming up right now, because I'm actually getting ready to launch the Leadership Bootcamp series based on the 8 dispositions we just talked about. Now, I'm going to share it's boot camp, so it's not for everyone. So really, we're really looking for those people who, if you're ready to take leadership full on, if you're ready to step into bold leadership and step forward into action, and if you're ready to make an investment in yourself, and if that's you, then great. Let me share what's going on and what I have coming up. So the Leadership Bootcamp series is actually made up of 8 boot camps over the course of this year. And each boot camp consists of 5 weeks. And during each week, it's going to be 90 minutes. Remember, I said boot camp. When you think of boot camp, I want you to think intensive. We're going to get in there. We're going to do the work. So just think about today, and I want you to exit. And that's what our weeklies are going to look like. We're going to take each of those dispositions. We're going to do a really, really deep dive. We're going to talk about and explore ways that that leadership is showing up in our lives. Again, both professionally and personally. Then we're going to step into looking at that resistance and getting coached through it along with those challenges. And this, for many of us, can be really uncomfortable and awkward, but that's part of boot camp. It's pushing through and leveling up. And also, before we close out each session, we're going to talk about setting our goals, and we're going to talk about strong goals and how to put a goal into place that, again, we're more likely to follow through and step into some action planning around that, as well as being part of the community, which means not only are you going to be surrounded by other people who are stepping into the same leadership, but also a community that's going to hold you accountable. So we're going to be there to cheer you on and celebrate those successes. And we're also going to be there to say, okay, we know you got this, level up, get to it. I know you can hit those goals. So all of this typically would cost well over $1,100. So I'm just going to throw the price out there right now because I want to be really clear. Actually, it's only $579 for each boot camp. So the cost is really low. So because I want as many people to take advantage of it as possible. Now, many of you are going to be like, well, wait, one is great, but when I looked at my rating sheet, I actually had, 3 or 4. So you can either choose one boot camp, or if you want to get some savings, you can do 4 boot camps, and that's for the cost of $2,200. The third option is, and I know this is going to be some of you as well, is like, okay, look, Deidre, I'm all in. I want to really level up. Last year wasn't that great for me. This year, I have a vision of doing so much more. So you can do all 8 boot camps. And if you do that for $4,250, you just get a huge savings. So I want to reward those people who are willing to step in, further in, and all in. So let me break down what the first boot camp is. It's coming up in February. It's going to be around mid-February. I'm looking at those dates right now. And remember, we're talking about the 90 minutes. So we're going to be talking about those deep dives. First, we're going to talk about vision, right? What is the power behind visioning and having a vision? There's a lot of research around that. We're going to talk about casting out or declaring your vision and getting other people enrolled in it so that you get a community of people to support you, like someone said, and help you move everything forward. So you're not just doing it by yourself. We're going to be talking about those areas of resistance around your vision. Is your vision clear enough? Is it compelling enough? How do we tweak it to make it so? And thinking about your why behind that, and then coaching through that. And then again, setting up those goals. What are some things that you can do right now? They don't have to be big. What are some things you can do right now to start stepping into the vision? And how would you like the community to hold you accountable? You get to tell us that. Also, what we're going to be thinking about is when you're talking about the vision, right? We want to be fueling, right? Instead of pushing. So that's our goal. And as I said before, we're going to be celebrating those successes. So keep that in mind in terms of the community. As well as the boot camps themselves, I want to put the TA library out there for those of you who joined me for the TA summit, the virtual summit last year. These are where all those interviews are. We put them into a library. You can get 24/7 access to it. So it's a great way to go back in and increase your own professional development by listening to those interviews and thinking through them, or sharing them with the people in your life, whether it's the professionally at work or personally, because many of the topics we talk about in terms of teams apply to both situations. Also, this is valued at $397, so there's a lot going on here as well. So I want you to be able to take advantage of that. In addition to that, because I'm going to pour as much as I can in, because again, this is boot camp, it's intense. We're going to put a lot out there. I'm also going to give you access, 24/7 access to an additional professional development opportunity around the characteristics of effective teams. And what's cool about this is that it's about an hour-long training. It's all pre-recorded. It comes with handouts. So you have the PowerPoints, you actually have reflective questions. And if you want to share it with those people at work or again at home, there are even extension questions and exercises that you can use to explore and take that content deeper and dig into those skill sets. In addition to that, you're also going to get tools. You're already familiar with the effective teaming wheel, but in addition to that, I also developed a rating tool. It's kind of like a calibration tool to get everybody on the same page in terms of where do they think they are really, as are they working in the group, or are they coming together as a team, or are they being really highly effective teams? So this is a really great bonus and add-on, because again, you can go in and watch it for yourself, or you can share it with others, and all of those tools and handouts are downloadable. This in itself is also valued at $250, so we're throwing all of these things in. The last thing is, again, talking about the community. So we're getting ready to launch the Facebook page. I'm hoping to launch it in February along with the Leadership Bootcamp. And right now we have members across all 50 states. All 50 states. So you're going to have access to different people and working in not only education field, but eventually in other fields as well around their leadership beliefs. What are they stepping into? What are their challenges? How can we support each other? So it's not just going to be solely at your work or solely at your home, but across the nation as well. The other thing is all of this put together. So we're talking about the bootcamp series, right? And we're said, hey, it's valued over $1,100. We're talking about the library with all of those interviews, over 6 or 8 hours of interviews are in there for $400. We're talking about the additional training around effective teaching teams, and that's over $250. And of course, the Facebook page, which allows you to hook up with the community, is just priceless. And so all of that together is over $1,700. So I want you to be aware of what you're actually getting for the price of $579 per boot camp. So if you do one, you get $1,700 worth of value for $579. If you want to do the 4, you get over $5,100 of value for $2,200. If you want to do all 8, it's almost $10,000 of value for only $4,250. That's less than half, or that's more than half the price. So lots of things are going on there. And I know what you're thinking. Some of you are you're not sure if this is the right fit for you. And that's okay. I'm going to ask you to step into strong leadership and check your mindset. What resistance are you feeling right now? What's coming up for you? Is it one of the 5: fear, uncertainty, confidence, community, commitment? And if so, think about pushing through it. What strategy can you use? Do you have a vision or mission that's so compelling that it's going to pull you forward? Think about what we did, what I just showed you for the leadership bootcamp. Will that support the life that you want as a strong leader? And what will it cost me to step into strong leadership? And what you'll notice is that there's a URL down there at the bottom. And if you're interested in going ahead and signing up, you can go ahead and put in that URL. And so last but not least, just like I promised, here's your links to your certificate and well as a free gift. So remember I asked you to be willing to send out and fill out a survey or evaluation. Here's the link for that. Oh, and what I'm going to do is I am going to see if I can put that link into the chat. I'll do that in just a second. And from that link, you can go ahead and fill out the survey. And once you do that, you'll see at the bottom of it, you'll actually see a download button, and that will take you to the link where you can download your certificate of participation and your free gift. And the free gift is those leadership quotes that we just went through, printed onto really beautiful backgrounds. So you can download, print those onto cardstock, use those to help remind you of the dispositions, but also use those with the people around you to get them to start thinking about their leadership. Again, it's not just professionally, but it's personally as well. And then, of course, if you need more support, don't forget to reach out, because I'm part of your community, right? Think about that resistance and push through it. If you're not sure, if you want to ask more questions, email me. We can schedule a short call. And again, I promise no pressure. And there again is that that URL. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to go ahead and put that URL, both URLs, into the chat, so you can go ahead and click on them. And here we go. Give me one sec. Okay, so what you'll see coming up first is the evaluation link. All you need to do is you can either copy and paste that into your browser, or you can click on it right now, and it will open up right into that survey document. For those of you who are listening during the replay and you want to get your certificate and free gift, again, I will put it into the posting that will get sent out with the replay. So you'll be able to get it from that as well if you're not able to see the link, or you can go back into the PowerPoint and it will show you there. And then also, if this is for you and you know it, there's that enrollment enrollment link. You can go ahead and click on that and it'll take you right into the sign up. Again, it will reiterate all the fantastic things that we're talking about. And that's it for our day today. I think I got it underneath 10 or 15 minutes at the end. I know we went a little bit over, and that always happens because there's just so much to talk about and so much to share. But before we go, I want to just leave a couple of minutes open for whatever questions, thoughts, or wonderings you might have. And you can either type those into the chat or you can take yourself off of mute and ask me directly. Okay, so they're saying you're saying that you're not seeing the link. Okay, thank you for that. And that's why I forgot to hit enter. So now you should be able to see the two links. So the first one is the evaluation link. When you click on that, then you can go ahead and it'll take you right to the survey doc. You can put your comments right into that, and then your download link for your certificate and your free gifts. So the free gifts are the leadership quotes on the beautiful backgrounds, as well as the mindset wheel. So if you didn't have a chance to download that before, you can get it from that link as well. And then there's that enrollment link. Again, if you have questions, reach out, step into your leadership, connect to your community. Give me an email and let me know what questions or thoughts or wonderings you have. And so this is where I'm going to leave us. If there's anyone else who has any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in Leadership Bootcamp. Bye, everyone. Have a fantastic day and weekend.